Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Action Show. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the importance of virtual events and the different type of virtual events that you can actually have. And if you guys probably realize by now, I'm actually standing today as opposed to sitting. I think this might be the first episode that I'm standing, right? And we're talking about virtual events. All right, so before we get into it, I want to let you guys know that this episode is sponsored by the Imperfect Action Con. And the new dates for the Imperfect Action Con is October 21st and 22nd. So next coming days, you guys will be hearing a lot about what's going on with that. And what I'm going to do right now is what I always do. I'm going to send a link out to our audience to let them know we are on and popping. And it's going to be great. So listen, if you guys want to tap into our test community so you can get the news, moves, the updates, the latest and the greatest, make sure you text the word action 213-410-4920. That's 213-410-4920. And what we're about to do right now is, like I said, send this link out to the community. And we are chatting about virtual events. All right, cool. So there's a lot of different virtual events that you can do, and the purpose of virtual events is obviously is to get in front of an audience wherever you are in the world, especially if you're at home on vacation. I actually like virtual events on a vacation because it's like, oh, I'm gonna take this hour, I'm gonna flame, I'm gonna show some love, I'm gonna give some value, I'm gonna make some money, or I'm gonna make some impact, whatever your intent is. Then I'm gonna go back and hang out with my family or friends or enjoy where I'm at. So like the ability to know that you can do that is literally crazy, and that's why virtual events are so impactful. And another thing about it is, if you think about, okay, cool, if I was going to get into an audience of 50 to 100, 200,000 people, I physically have to go to a space, physically have to get to that space. And then there's a lot of activity that needs to happen to get the 50, 100, 250,000 people in that room for me to get on that, for me to get on that stage and then like give value. And then if you think about, okay, well, if I want to do that again, it's going to be a whole event for that to occur. You understand what I'm saying? But on a virtual event, you could literally have virtual events lined up multiple times in a week, multiple times in a day, multiple times in a month. And depending on what your virtual event is on, you could literally like expedite your income fast with virtual events. All right. So this is what today's topic is. We're going to be talking about some common virtual events, and also we're going to be talking about some of my favorite like new things that I started doing, and just giving you guys different ideas on what you can do as far as virtual events are concerned. All right. So we already know virtual events is probably the fastest way that you can make an impact. It's probably the fastest, more consistent way for you to get in front of a large audience of people, especially if you're a guest in someone's community or someone else has a virtual event and then you just attend that and then you do your thing. It's just so many different ways that you can kind of go about it. And I actually recommend that you guys seek out different opportunities for you to have virtual events, right? So let's just talk about it. So the first one, if we look at a webinar, right? Let's look at a webinar real quick, right? So I'm gonna say webinar. Webinar be number one. And when you think about a webinar, with the webinar, there's different versions of the webinar, right? So you could do a master class, right? Or you could do, let's say a workshop, right? And I'm going to break down the differences. So with the webinar, you're essentially, whether it's live or automated, in front of an audience by way of your computer or a camera. You could be streaming or not streaming, and you're going to give some value. Well, obviously, webinars have different cadences and everything like that, and how you want to flow and how you want to set it up and how you want to deliver. But then at the same time, there's different segments in the webinar, right? So you could do a master class, and if you do a master class, you are literally the authority, the expert on said information. You're going to deliver said information to the audience from a level of authority, a level of expertise. It could even be a level of celebrity. Like you're very known about this particular. You know this particular topic well, or you're known to be like someone that champions this information or champions this topic, right? Shout out to Vonza, right? This is definitely one of my guys' brands. And if you're looking for more information, definitely make sure you want to check out Vonza, right? I'm gonna make sure I put the link below. So that's what a masterclass is. Now, a workshop is a little different, right? A workshop, also with webinar, also with a masterclass, you could have some Q&A, but the workshop is going to be, okay, here's a specific task that we're going to accomplish today, and then I'm going to make sure that you get this information, and by the end of the workshop, you have that thing completed. So workshops are really dope, especially in person, because let's say you are going to a workshop to learn how to do webinars. Let's just say that's it. Well, you're going to go to this workshop. You're going to go to the workshop, and if it's a day, 2 days, 3 days, if it's virtual or in person, you're going to learn a thing. You're going to do the thing. You're going to be more competent in a thing, and then the thing's going to be completed by the end of the workshop, right? So that's really the difference between a masterclass where you just kind of be not talking down, but speaking from a level of expertise and authority, giving a lot of game, giving a lot of value. And a workshop is going to be more zeroed in on a one thing, possibly two things that are said to be accomplished from when you start the workshop or when the workshop is completed. No one should leave the workshop and not have that thing or things completed unless the person didn't show up or is not participating, right? So those are two different ways you can look at breaking down a webinar, right? Now, number two, I would say challenges, right? Let's get that in there. So challenges are pretty dope, and challenges is actually something that I learned about earlier this year. And a friend of mine, Anthony Golden, who's Myron Golden's son, if you guys are familiar with Myron Golden, he's one of the first persons that actually got me like aware of the idea of a challenge. And the first challenge I attended was Myron Golden's. Now, with the challenge has a lot of buildup. It could be 3 days or 5 days, sometimes 7 days. And essentially you're teaching information on information on information on information. You're delivering value each of these days. And at the end of the challenge, the participants would have gotten multiple pieces of information that they're going to be able to apply and actually get a result. You want to make sure that the challenge delivers in a way in which the people that participate actually get real value, but real applicable. I can't say it. Real application. They get value with some real application, and they're able to take the information that they have and they're able to assimilate it in the real world to get a real result, right? That's what the challenge is. So you got the webinar, which breaks down to the masterclass and the workshop. You got the challenge, which could be 3 days, 5 days. You got the challenge, which could be 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days. And it's information that's basically stacked on top. Every day there's homework or some type of participation, and you have a real interaction with the participants that's in the actual challenge. So that's a great way to look at that, right? Now, number three would be, and this is one of my favorites. This is kind of new. I would say this is kind of new age. So number three would be, I call it a virtual. Actually, there's a couple. Let's say virtual author's cut. I don't have a name for it. Right? So we're just gonna call it a virtual author's cut. Chandra, what's up? So on a virtual author's cut, imagine you have a book, right? And I know you guys probably been to movies before where they got the director's cut and the producer comes out, director comes out, maybe some of the actors come out, and when the movie's over, you guys are hanging out, they're sitting in front of the screen, and they're basically breaking down the movie, talking about their experience, and then they open it up to Q&A. So you guys can 100% do the exact same thing, where like, let's say you're privy on a subject matter, maybe you wrote a book, maybe it's for a YouTube channel or a blog or whatever. They get some value, and at the end of the value that they receive, you open it up for question and answer. And it's a great way to get your audience more committed and more involved and more connected to you in whatever that thing is, right? And I think it's pretty ingenious because we've all been, well, most of us, we've all been to physical movies or plays or anything like that. And then after, because it's a special event, maybe we should call it a special event. After, because it's a special event, we're able to stay after for a little bit, hear from the creators, hear from people that actually participated in the presentation. And because this special event, we get a little inside information. We get to hear things and engage with them in a way that we would not ever be able to. And that's what you can do on this virtual author's cut. We're just going to call it a special event, right? Now, another thing, I don't really have a name for this neither. I'm going to come up with something. We're going to call it, let's call it we're going to call it a virtual cliff note, right? So I know you guys remember back in the day when we were kids, right? We were in high school, maybe college, and we got these huge textbooks, right? And because these huge textbooks, right, we're like, yo, I don't know how I'm going to get all this information and get ready for the test or the exam or whatever the case may be. There used to be these things back in the day. I don't know if they still exist. I might be dating myself, which is all good, right? There was these things back in the day called Cliff Notes. And you could get the Cliff Notes on like any book or any subject. And those Cliff Notes would literally give you a summarized version, summarized information of each chapter of whatever said book was. Well, you could do the exact same thing. So if you got a book or a workbook or, you know, whatever the case may be, you got like, you know, something that people have gone through, there's something that you're teaching them or whatever the case may be, right? You can have them come to a virtual Cliff Note session, lack of a better word. And then basically, this could be something that's pre-recorded or it could be something that's live. You're basically summarizing each element in each aspect or each chapter of the book for them. And you're breaking it down in your own words. So yeah, they can experience it, let's say in the audio version, they can experience it in the regular text version. They can maybe experience it, you know, in a YouTube summary or something like that. But when they get to sit down with the person or persons involved with the project, and that individual is going to give you their real life explanation or summary of the information with their own tendencies and cadence, that's really valuable, right? So hey, listen, chapter 1 might be like 30 pages, but I'm going to summarize chapter 1 in a couple of sentences. This is all you need to know. This, and this. You got all this stuff? You guys are ready? Okay, cool. Let's go to chapter 2. So you can make your own virtual event or pre-recorded event around that. Let's just call it the virtual Cliff Note. And then that's going to give you the opportunity to have a whole nother product and a whole nother experience that you can have for your consumers. I think it's pretty ingenious. And I also recommend that a lot of you guys tap into that. So let's do a quick little recap, right? You got webinars, and the webinar is broken down into a masterclass or a workshop, right? So webinars, masterclass, or workshop is all different ways to look at a webinar, right? Number 2, we're talking about challenges. Challenges is information stacked on each other, and it's very interactive, and you're giving them homework at the end of the challenge. And like I said, it's information that's stacked to get a real result, to get real impact, and give them engaged in a longer period of time that they can spend with you, right? 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Number 3 is the virtual author's cut. So on a virtual author's cut, this is basically just a virtual event, and then after you're sticking around for some Q&A, right? You're giving them real world value. They got some questions that they haven't been able to ask. This is their opportunity to ask you or whoever else is involved in the project to sit down with you and kind of get your take on the situation and get some insider information. And then number 4 is the virtual Cliff Note. Again, virtual Cliff Note, if you think about it in reference of a book or a workbook or something like that, you're basically summarizing each chapter or each element of the project to give them your insight, your personal insight, how you view it, right? In a paragraph, a couple sentences, basically how the people that are contributing to the project actually speak and engage. So you're taking a 30-page, 40-page, 50-page, 20-page, let's say, chapter, and then summarizing that in a couple of words, couple of minutes, couple of sentences. Whitney, what's up? So that's really what I wanted to cover today with the virtual events. And the thing about virtual events is if you use these virtual events, they can 100% change how fast that you could bring in revenue, and then also how fast you are able to connect with people and grow your audience and get real impact. One of my favorite things is to come into other people's communities with a presentation and then just flame it, give them hella game and hella value. Like I really, really, really love that. And that's something that all you guys can do, because whatever you have going on, there's a digital side to that. That's basically a whole new business or another opportunity for you to bring in revenue. So if you guys have any questions, drop the questions below. That's what I wanted to cover today on today's episode. Just wanted to give you a bunch of game and a bunch of value around virtual events, the importance, why you may want to do one, why you may want to recommit if you haven't been committing to them, why you may want to do your first one, or maybe you want to dust off a presentation for a virtual event that you did before, get back in the saddle and produce and create a virtual event. All right. So if there's no questions, which I don't really see no questions below, I want to say to you guys, thank you for another, participating, showing up on another episode of the Imperfect Action Show. Tomorrow we got more fire, more content. You don't want to miss it. Click the link below. Grab your ticket for the Imperfect Action Con, October 21 to 22. That link will be below, and I'll see you guys on another episode. All right, peace.